Hello and welcome to the Cardiac Cats YouTube channel. I'm your host Jacob Shorba, and today we got a short video where we're going to break down this Foye Oluokun restructure and what this means for the Jaguars going forward. So it's about that time where we're starting to see this news come out and see the Jaguars make their first moves. We saw them re-sign CJ Beathard, I think, to a $4.5 million deal just a day or two ago. And now we see the first restructure of the offseason. And we expected these to come. We expected to have players getting restructured, and this was one of them that made a lot of sense. But the way that this restructure has taken place, I would argue, is different than what we really expected. And I think it shows you a lot about what Jacksonville is going to do for the future past this season, how they're going to navigate the cap space. And we're going to get into that. But before we do, I want to talk about what's changed in this deal, explain that, break that down. There's also something I want to clarify that I've talked about before. I want to get that correct. And then we're going to talk about what this means for the Jaguars moving forward. So, the Foye Oluokun restructure. Essentially, what this has done, you can see he's now very far down this list. You'll love to see it. And this is sorted by cap number. So originally, he was around $19 million as far as what his cap number was this year. What the Jaguars decided to do was they converted the full amount of his base salary, around that, it was 10 million something, into signing bonus. They split that up over the next season, which he is under contract, and they also added 3 void years. So we'll actually see if we click on this, if it'll show us the information on it. Yep, here we go. So you see here that they have sent this bonus over the next 4 years. So there will be no big cap hit from this move. Instead, what the Jaguars are doing is they're going to spread this out over the next few years. They're going to ease the cap right now. They're going to give themselves flexibility. And ultimately, I don't think we're going to see a huge impact from this. Now, where we will see an impact is if they do this several times. Because say you do this for 2 or 3 other players, you could be looking at as much as 8 or 9 million against the cap being added on for the next few years. Heck, even more, possibly. But it's interesting with the way that this is structured. And when we broke down the offseason about a week or 2 ago, and we were talking about the different deals the Jaguars could do, how they could restructure, what we expected to be available from Foye Oluokun was going to be around just under $7 million. However, we have more because this entire amount of signing bonus has been split up over the future seasons, over the next 4. And so you'll see here, there's no base salary for these years. And so void years are just essentially years where the player is not on the team that they have a cap hit. It doesn't mean that he cannot come back, but it just means that as of now, he's not under contract for those years. Those are void years. This is part of the cap. If the Jaguars decided to bring him back for another deal, this number would simply be added on to the new contract. So, that's what we're looking at with Foye Oluokun's deal. This frees up more cap space than we expected, probably about 3 million or more so, which is really good news for the Jaguars. So, before I talk about how this is going to impact them down the road, I want to clarify something that I had wrong before when talking about restructures. As far as whether or not you can cut a player from the team down the road, or as in whether it's smart or not, whether you save more money, comes down to whether the money you're converting a signing bonus in a restructure is money that's already guaranteed or is money that's unguaranteed. So, since this contract, I believe all this money was guaranteed, the Jaguars still have the opportunity to cut him the next year and save a sizable amount of money. And so that's something that we could definitely see them do still. Now, it's not the same amount, and that's something I'd have to do more investigation into, but it is more than we would have expected with a restructure. And so you have that as an example for him having this money guaranteed already being converted into signing bonus. Now, say it's with Christian Kirk, and say it's done next offseason, which it won't be, but we're going to use this for an example. Christian Kirk's contract has around, I believe, $37.5 million guaranteed. Somewhere around there. And so the guaranteed money is over with pretty quick. So if you're signing a signing bonus with him, if you're paying him up front, you're changing unguaranteed money into guaranteed money. So that's something I wanted to clarify. It probably sounds confusing still. That's all right. It's confusing to me too. There is a lot of complicated stuff that goes into the cap space. So hopefully that kind of helps with that. Now, to talk about what this is going to do for the Jaguars long term, I think what this shows us is that the Jaguars are going to have a very high limit, a very high ceiling to how much they are willing to push money down the road. And so a similar team we could look at is the Philadelphia Eagles, where you have contracts that are very similar to this, like Javon Hargrave, for example. Well, he is a free agent this offseason. Don't know whether he'll be back with Philadelphia or not, but he is currently not signed for the next season. He still has cap hits, I believe, for the next 3 years. And that's what Philadelphia does. And apparently, that's what we're going to see from Jacksonville going forward. I think you're going to see some very similar deals done with these other players. Guys, I would expect Christian Kirk, for one, makes a lot of sense for Jacksonville to restructure. I think Darius Williams could be a good candidate as well. I think you could also see one of the offensive linemen get hit, someone they're really high on, because I think the way the team feels about these players compared to the fans is a little different. Like, for example, Cam Robinson will be a player where we think of him as, yeah, he's a solid starter, but the Jaguars could move on from him. That could be a smart move, especially when you consider the draft capital, how much you save. It would actually not be a bad move for Jacksonville to trade him and put Little there. But the team feels very different about that. The team values Cam Robinson a lot, and I would be shocked if they made a trade like that. Although I think it would be a good move. So I think we're going to see Jacksonville do a few more of these restructures. I think they're going to continue to clear up more money than we expected. And as far as the current free agents on the team, what I expect, I think they're going to find a way to bring back every notable name as long as their market value is not far off what they're asking for. They're still going to be realistic. They're still not going to go after signing absolutely ludicrous deals. I don't think they can do as much of that as they did last offseason, or that more so they should. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for this. I think Juwan Taylor is very likely to come back to the team now, looking at what the Jaguars did with this deal, what they're probably going to continue to do. I think Evan Ingram, already expected him to be here, obviously, but I think he's going to continue to stay. And I think, as crazy as it sounds, this team might find a way to keep a player like Roy Robertson Harris. I think there's a route to doing that. So it's going to be a really exciting offseason, and ultimately what this is going to do for us as fans, because they are able to spread out this money so far and navigate the cap space this way, we are going to have a better team on the field this season than we would have if they were not doing this. We will have a much better team, and the long-term consequences are going to be very minimal. Especially when you consider, you look at cap space projections here, goes up over 20,000 a year, about 26,000 a year over these seasons. That's the projection right now. And the projection this year was actually pretty dang spot on. It was 200,000 off. So I think it's a model that you could trust. And it tells us that there's going to be plenty of room for big contracts. And as time goes on, these deals are going to look better and better. And these kinds of dead cap hits in the future are not going to be a huge deal because they're going to be less and less of a percentage of the salary cap. So Jacksonville definitely going to be putting itself in a much better situation. I think you'll still see some of the normal cuts like Shaquille Griffin, I think will be gone. Caleb Von Chason, I think, will end up going to another team, whether it's trade or just being claimed off the waivers and they save money that way. Some way it's going to happen. That's kind of what I'm expecting. I think this team's going to find a way to do all that. I think they're going to find ways to answer their questions in free agency. We're going to be looking at a better roster heading into the draft, and we'll be able to focus more on getting the best players available. So get excited. This should be a really fun offseason. There's going to be more of this news coming out. We'll break it all down, but I hope that gives you an idea of what this looks like for Jacksonville now, and what they're going to be doing down the road. So thank you for watching. We will have a video out, I believe, tomorrow morning. Did a live mock draft. Should be a fun one. Talk about some more prospects. Talk about our big board for the first time that we're putting together. So it'll be a fun one. Check that out if you can. Let me know what you think. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and go Jags.